Good afternoon for everyone. Today we're gonna talk about the 1980s and 1990s multi-declaration foreign policy, the Özal era, and the PKK issue. Today I will discuss Turkey's foreign policy during the 1980s and 1990s, a period marked by economic reform, proactive engagement with multiple regions, and the challenges posed by domestic security issues on the international stage. I will focus on four key aspects. First one, Turgut Özal's economy, centered foreign policy initiatives, engagement with the Middle East, the Balkans, and Central Asia. The international dimensions of the PKK issue and its impact on diplomacy. The last one, Turkey's position before and after the Gulf War. Let's talk about Turgut Özal's economy-centered foreign policy initiatives. Turgut Özal, who served as Prime Minister from 1983 to 1989 and as a President from 1989 to 1993, fundamentally reshaped Turkey's foreign policy by linking it closely with economic goals. Özal believed that a strong economy was essential for national security and international influence. And here is the key aspects of the history of his policy: liberalization and export promotion. Özal pushed for market-oriented reforms, attracting foreign investment and opening Turkey to global trade. This required establishing diplomatic and trade relations worldwide. Economic diplomacy. Turkish embassies began to focus not only on political relations, but also on trade promotion, investment, and tourism. Bilateral relations with Europe, the Middle East, and Asia increasingly emphasized economic cooperation and regional economic initiatives. Özal encouraged Turkey to play a role as a trade and energy hub, lever- leveraging its geographic position to connect Europe with the Middle East and the emerging economies of Central Asia. And I would like to say that this approach represented a shift from a primarily security-driven foreign policy to a multi-dimensional one in which economic and strategic goals reinforced each other. Next one, it's engagement with the Middle East, the Balkans, and Central Asia. During the 1980s and 1990s, Turkey actively expanded its diplomacy in neighboring and regional areas. Middle East: Turkey aimed to stabilize relations with key countries including Iraq, Syria, and Iran, while maintaining a pro-Western orientation. The Iran-Iraq War and later the Gulf War created both challenges and opportunities for Turkey's diplomacy. Turkey positioned itself as a mediator and logistic partner, balancing relations between regional powers and the United States. The next is Balkans. The collapse of Yugoslavia in the 1990s presented Turkey with historical, cultural, and strategic interests. It supported the newly independent Muslim-majority states, such as Bosnia and Albania, providing humanitarian and engaging in diplomacy to promote stability. Central Asia. The independence of former Soviet republics, especially Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan, opened opportunities for Turkey to strengthen cultural and economic ties. Özal promoted a vision of pan-Turkic cooperation, emphasizing shared language, cultural, and economic interests. And also, this multi-directional engagement reflected a strategic vision. Turkey sought to be an active regional actor, not merely a passive neighbor or NATO ally. The next one is the international dimension of the PKK issue and its impact on diplomacy. During the 1980s and 1990s, Turkey faced the major domestic security challenges. The rise of the PKK, how we already told, Kurdistan Workers' Party. The PKK insurgency, which began in 1984, had both domestic and international dimensions after attacking Turkey's diplomacy in multiple ways. Bilateral tensions. Turkey frequently pressed neighboring countries, especially Iraq and Syria, to take action against PKK bases. Disputes over cross-border security occasionally strained relations. International awareness. Turkey sought to classify the PKK as a terrorist organization in Europe and the United States, gaining support for counterterrorism measures and isolating the PKK diplomatically. Impact on regional cooperation. The PKK activities complicated Turkey's engagement with Iraq, particularly after the Gulf War, and influenced its policy toward Kurdish populations in Syria and Iran. Also, the PKK issue demonstrated how internal security challenges can shape foreign policy, requiring Turkey to combine military, diplomatic, and intelligence strategy in the international arena. So the next one is Turkey's position before and after the Gulf War. The Gulf War of 1990s 1991 represented another pivotal moment of Turkey's foreign policy. Turkey's position during this conflict reflected its strategic priorities and alliance obligations. Before the Gulf War, Turkey maintained close coordination with the United States and NATO allies. It didn't directly intervene in combat but allowed the use of its territory and airspace for logistics, supplies, and intelligence operations. This cooperation strengthened Turkey's position as a reliable NATO member. After the Gulf War, let's talk about the Gulf War's impact on Turkey's foreign policy. Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in August 1990s ignited the Gulf War, triggering profound geopolitical shifts across the Middle East. Turkey, sharing a significant border with Iraq and holding a crucial position as a NATO ally, found itself at the epicenter of the crisis. And Turkey's critical role, Turkey granted the United States and coalition forces permission to utilize its strategic Iraqi airbase, a decision that required careful balancing of domestic sensitivities and international obligations. In alignment with the United Nations resolutions, Turkey promptly implemented stringent economic sanctions against Iraq, demonstrating its commitment to international law and collective security efforts. In the aftermath of the war, Turkey faced considerable challenges, including a significant influx of refugees and heightened security threats along its southern border. These post-war realities necessitated a swift and comprehensive recalibration of its regional policy, leading to a more proactive and assertive stance. So, mm, wait, and let's talk about the 1980s and 1990s were a transformative period for Turkey's foreign policy. And we already understand that under Turgut Özal, economic consideration became like central to diplomacy, while Turkey pursued active engagement with the Middle East, the Balkans, and the Central Asia. The PKK insurgents highlighted the international dimensions of domestic security, influencing relations with neighbors and Western allies. Finally, Turkey's role during the Gulf War demonstrated its importance as a regional security actor and a reliable NATO partner. So, thank you for your attention.